Have I got a surprise for you? Today is the long-awaited longevity update in our balloon brand comparison. We have been comparing and contrasting 10 different balloon brands to see which one is the best, to see which brand is the king, to see which brand is the best brand of balloons for balloon twisters like myself to use. And so on November 20th, I blew up balloon dogs with each of the 10 brands of balloons. And now on December 9th, we're going to see what those balloons look like a few weeks later. Also, as a bonus, I still have the balloons inflated from when I did the length test, which was the very first video I did, where I tested how long each of the balloons were. That video was on November 7th, and I still have those balloons. So we're going to see what those balloons look like over a month later, now on December 9th. Let's get started. So first, we'll go through the dogs. I'll go through which ones I think deflated the most and which ones are the smallest, and we'll end with the biggest one, okay? So the one that I think of all of our balloon dogs that shrank the most was Clownatex. So again, after I inflated this fully and made a balloon dog on November 20th, and now on December 9th, this is our Clownatex. The next would be the Calisan. This is what it looks like now on December 9th. It was fully inflated on November 20th. Okay. Next up from that, I would say would probably be it's a pretty close one between these two, but I would say probably Decomex I would put next. Again, it's holding its shape really well, but it's definitely skinnier, definitely looking more like a 160. But there's the Decomex. And next I would probably do the Elitex. The Elitex is a little bit plumper still, a little bit thicker than the Decomex, but it's also starting to lose its shape a little bit, and the legs are no longer holding their shape, whereas with like the Decomex, the legs are still able to hold their shape. With the Elitex, right now, after a couple weeks, they're no longer able to hold their shape. They're kind of coming undone, which is to be expected. Next, I would have the Tuftex. This is still, again, a little bit more inflated, a little bit plumper than the Elitex or the Decomex, but also same problem we saw with the Elitex, that it is starting to come untwisted because, again, the air is leaking out. But here's our Tilco. Okay, next, and they kind of get pretty close here, but I would say next as far as inflation, I would actually put the Qualatex next. So this is what the Qualatex looks like after a few weeks of being inflated and just sitting here on these shelves. There's the Qualatex. And then I would put, after the Qualatex, I would put the Brookloon as being a little bit more inflated still. Still a little bit less deflated than the Qualatex. So we have the Brookloon. And then after the Brookloon, I would put the Sempertex. The Sempertex, I find, is still a little bit more inflated than the Brookloon or the Qualatex or any of the others that we just looked at. So here's the Sempertex by Batalic. Next, I would put Tuftex. This is what the Tuftex is like. Again, I was not super familiar with Tuftex before we started doing this balloon brand comparison, and the Tuftex did really well. So that's why we are doing this balloon brand comparison. So there's the Tuftex. And the one that stayed inflated the most was actually the Gemar. So here's the Gemar. So just to compare, if you want to look at like the smallest to the largest, when I inflated all of these on November 20th, they were all the same size. And as you can see, they are no longer the same size. You can see this is the Clownatex, which deflated the most, and the Gemar, which stayed the most. So you can see there's quite a difference in size now between the Clownatex and the Gemar after they've been sitting here for a few weeks. So there's all the different balloon dogs, but remember, I had a bonus for you. We're going to look at the balloons that I had inflated way back on November 7th when I tested to see how long the different brands were. And we're going to look at those and see what those look like now. I'm not necessarily doing these in any particular order as far as shortest to longest. I'm just going to be pulling them out at random, and we'll be talking about them. So first one, we'll do Gemar. So this is the Gemar. As you can see, it actually stayed pretty thick. As far as, you'll notice a lot of these other ones are going to look more like 160s or even skinnier. The Gemar stayed looking pretty thick. I mean, this still looks like a 260, but it did lose quite a bit of air, right? So while it lost some air, the part of the balloon that still has air in it did stay pretty thick. I mean, if I didn't show you the bottom of this, this looks pretty much like a freshly inflated, 260. So, but it has had a significant air loss since November 7th. But it has been a month. So again, that's to be expected. But here's our Jamar. Next, we have, which one is this? We have the Elitex. So the Elitex, you can see, maybe not as much air loss out the end as the Jamar, but it's definitely thinner. We've lost some thickness. So it's lost some air up here. You see some parts here where it's like the air is going away. But this is the Elitex, and you got a little bit of a nipple there at the bottom. This is the Elitex, again, after over a month. Next, we have, this is the Qualitex. So you can see some loss there, some loss there. Again, all of these were fully inflated 260s on November 7th, and this is just what they look like now after a month of sitting here. So here's our Qualitex. Next, we'll do, this is the Tilco. So this is what the Tilco looks like. Again, air's still going all the way to the end, but you can see definitely it's skinnier, and there's places where we definitely see the air is, leaking out. But that's what the Tilco looks like after over a month. Next we have, this is the Decomex. So you see the Decomex, we're losing some air up here, quite a bit of air in the middle, a little bit of air at the end. But this is our Decomex after a month of sitting here. Next we have the Clownitex. This is our Clownitex after a month of sitting here. So we've lost quite a bit of air here on the Clownitex. Next is the Brookloon. And this is our Brookloon. Brookloon did pretty well. Still has air going all to the end. There's a little spot here and here where you can see that the air is leaking a little bit at the top, but all in all, the Brookloon held up pretty well. Next, we have the Sempertex. So, still has air all the way to the end. A little bit here where we can see it's losing some air. Little places, and a little bit at the top. But there's our Sempertex by Batalic. And two more left. We got our Calisan. So this is the Calisan. We see quite a bit of loss down here. As far as air loss, is skinny. But this is the Calisan. And then our last one we have is the Tuftex. So this one actually, I would say maybe, in my opinion, did the best out of all of them as far as the condition of this 260 after over a month. We see a little bit of loss here, a little bit here in the middle where it's starting to bend, and maybe a little bit at the very end. But all in all, for compared to the other brands we just looked at, the Tuftex held up really well and was probably, of all of the brands, the most fully inflated still after over a month. So yeah, again, we're just doing this balloon brand comparison to help you make an informed, educated decision when you decide to buy your next bag of balloons. Because I don't know about you, I spend a lot of money every year on balloons. A lot of money. And it's good for us to know, are we investing our money in quality product? Because if we have good quality balloons, it makes us look like good artists. If we have poor quality balloons, it makes us look like we don't know what we're doing at events when the balloons are popping all the time. So I just wanted to do as thorough and as in-depth of a balloon brand comparison as I possibly could. We have more videos coming, and I am going to, once I've gotten all of the balloon brand comparison individual videos, I'm going to put them all together as one big YouTube video. If you just want to watch, it'll probably be like an hour long, but if you just wanted to watch all of the balloon brand comparison in one video in one go, I will have that available for you once we're done with all of them. So we have a couple more things that we're going to compare coming up. Some things you probably expect, things like price, and then we have other things you're probably not going to expect, such as sound. Ooh. So stay tuned. We have some amazing balloon brand comparison videos coming up, and I hope that you enjoy the content.